Okay, it is time for our last trig function, and that last trig function is going to be tangent. Okay, so just a reminder, right? We did sine, that little e doesn't need to be there. We did sine of theta. We said that was the opposite side over the hypotenuse. Cosine was the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. And last but not least is tangent. Tangent is going to be the opposite side over the adjacent. So this one doesn't actually have any hypotenuse as part of the equation at all. And just another way to remember what our trig functions are. Some of you may have heard people say SOHCAHTOA or something like that. So that's because when we have sine opposite over hypotenuse, so cosine adjacent over hypotenuse, tangent opposite over adjacent, TOA, SOHCAHTOA. So that's kind of a little way to help you remember how to remember your trig functions. And again, here, this little diagram here. Here's our angle theta. And sine would be our opposite side over our hypotenuse. Cosine would be our adjacent side over our hypotenuse. And our tangent now is going to be our, let's get rid of this here, is going to be our opposite side over the adjacent side. Okay, so let's go ahead and just practice a few with tangent, okay? So we have done this exact same thing lots of times. The first thing that we're going to do every time is we are going to label our diagram. Here is our angle. Oh, I didn't really like that. There we go. Okay, so let's label our diagram. Here is our angle. Okay, over here, this is the side opposite of it. It's on the other side, so there's our opposite. And then this side is next to it, which is going to be adjacent. And our trig tangent for today is tangent of theta equals our opposite over our adjacent. Opposite is always on top, adjacent is always on the bottom. So we're going to have the tangent, our angle is 48. Our opposite is x, our adjacent is 12. And then we're going to follow that same rule. X is on the top, that means we multiply. So we're going to take 12 times the tangent of 48. And when we take 12 times the tangent of 48, we get 13.3. Again, as I am doing these, please make sure that you are actually entering these into your calculator as well. That way you're practicing on how to do it. Okay, and over here, we've got, here's our 27, okay? On the other side, that's our opposite. Right next to it, that is our adjacent. Opposite and adjacent tells me we're going to use tangent. So we have the tangent, angle is stuck to our trig function. And we have opposite is always on top, adjacent is always on the bottom. In this case, we have x on the bottom, which means that we are going to divide 15 divided by the tangent of 27, which is going to be 29.4. Okay, what I would like for you to do here is just pause the video real quick, and I would like for you to stop and actually complete the two on your own, okay? And then just pause it, and then when you come back, you can check that you are right. Okay, so if you did them correctly, the first one should be 20.3, the second one should be 30.7. All right, on this page, it's kind of like the other notes that we did yesterday, where now we're going to mix together the things that we have learned, okay? So we have to label. First, we're going to label. We're going to pick what our trig function is going to be. We're going to write our equation, and then we're going to go ahead and solve, okay? So here is on my first one, here is my angle, okay? Here's my hypotenuse, not helpful because there's nothing there. There's no value for your hypotenuse. Over on the opposite side from your angle is 13. Right next to it is your adjacent side, which is x. And if we have opposite and adjacent, remember we have sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And then tangent is opposite over adjacent. So if we have opposite and adjacent, that tells me that we are going to do tangent. Okay, we'll come back and actually write the equation in a second. So, second one, here is my angle. Here is my hypotenuse. Over here is my opposite, not helpful. And then right next to it here is my adjacent. If I have adjacent and hypotenuse, that would be cosine right here. So I would have cosine would be the trig function that I would need to use. Go back, and I should not have circled that because I don't want it to be circled forever. Okay. Look at the next one. Okay, let's circle our angle. Way over here, opposite of it is x. Across from the right angle is our hypotenuse. Opposite and hypotenuse up here. Opposite and hypotenuse says that we are going to use sine. Okay, again, I want you to do kind of like we did on the last slide. I would like for you to pause the video, finish labeling and circling the trig function, and then we'll go back and we'll actually write and solve our equations in a minute. Okay, so if you look, double check that you have things labeled correctly with your opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse, and that you have chosen the correct trig function that goes along with based on the names that you labeled there. And now let's go back and let's actually solve. Okay, now we know what trig function. Well, if I said we're going to use tangent, then we better use tangent. Tangent, and our angle is always attached to our trig function. Opposite is on top, which is 13. Adjacent is on the bottom, which is x. When x is on the bottom, that means we divide. 13 divided by the tangent of 68, and we should get x equals 5.3. Okay, second one, we said cosine, so we're going to have the cosine of 37 equals, with our cosine, the adjacent is always on top, and the hypotenuse is always on the bottom. X is our hypotenuse, it's on the bottom. X on the bottom means that we are going to divide 12 divided by the cosine of 37, which would be, rounded, would be 15. Okay, let's do just one more here. Where am I at? Number 5. We said number 5 was a sine, so we're going to have sine of our angle, 24, equals, opposite is on top, adjacent is on the bottom, which means x is on top, which means all we have to do is multiply. So in our calculator, we're going to say 15 times the sine of 24, which is going to be approximately 6.1. Okay, I'd like for you to go ahead, again, just like we did before, we did 3 of them together. I'd like you to pause the video, please, and finish those last 3, and then when you come back, just double check that they are right. Okay, so go ahead, double check those last 3 that you did on your own, hopefully, and you should have, the x was in the top on this one here on number 6, so we multiplied. The next one on our cosine here, x was in the top, so we multiplied. And then the last one, x was in the bottom, so we did 14 divided by the sine of 42, and we got 20.9. Okay, and then you're going to need to go ahead and do the using tangent, class kick. And again, just like the other ones, it has just tangent, and then it has a mix where you have to decide which trig function you're going to use. And so you need to just make sure you're labeling and figuring out which trig function to use.